In South Africa, more than 80% of the population turns to traditional healers known as sangomas for spiritual guidance and remedies. For many, it's a respected cultural practice deeply woven into daily life. But sometimes trust in ancient traditions can be exploited in the darkest of ways. In early 2024, the small seaside town of Saldanha Bay was shaken to its core when 6-year-old Joshlin Smith vanished without a trace. Her mother, Raquel Smith, at first appeared devastated, pleading for help on camera, her voice cracking with emotion. But behind the tears, something wasn't right. The community began whispering. Authorities followed the leads. And soon, an unthinkable truth began to surface, one that involved betrayal, desperation, and a disturbing transaction no parent should ever make. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. Raquel Smith was known around Saldanha Bay as a young mother trying to make ends meet. Living in a modest home in the Diazville area, she was often seen walking her daughter, little Joshlin, to school or chatting with neighbors outside local shops. Their life was simple: tight finances, shared meals, borrowed time. Joshlin, just 6 years old, had a bright smile and a soft voice. She loved playing with her cousins and drawing with broken crayons on scrap paper. Kelly didn't have a steady job, and she sometimes relied on others for help. Those close to her said she seemed stressed but always loving toward her daughter. Still, some noticed changes in her mood: long absences, whispered phone calls, odd visitors. No one could have guessed what would come next, but looking back, the signs were there: subtle, quiet, and easy to miss. On the morning of February 19, 2024, everything felt strangely quiet in the Smith household. Joshlin didn't show up at her usual spot in the schoolyard, and by midday, teachers began asking questions. When neighbors knocked on Kelly's door, she told them Joshlin had gone missing earlier that day. Her voice trembled, but her story was uncertain, changing slightly with each retelling. She claimed she'd left her daughter in the care of her boyfriend while she went to town, but details didn't add up. Concern rippled through the community. Posters with Joshlin's photo appeared on street poles. Volunteers gathered to search the nearby dunes and coastline. As hours turned into days, hope gave way to worry. Why hadn't Kelly reported her daughter missing sooner? Why was her reaction so muted? For many, a chilling question began to form quietly in the back of their minds. Was this really just a disappearance? As the search for Joshlin stretched into its second week, public concern turned into suspicion. Community members began sharing odd observations: how Kelly had been seen laughing on her phone just hours after reporting her daughter missing, or how she avoided eye contact when asked direct questions. Then came the biggest red flag. Surveillance footage from a nearby store showed Kelly walking alone during the exact time she claimed to be out looking for help. The police quietly intensified their investigation. Forensics teams visited her home. Dogs were brought in. Social workers began asking deeper questions about her relationship with Joshlin. Meanwhile, Kelly started withdrawing from public view. Her social media posts, once filled with pleas for support, slowed to a stop. Still, she insisted she had nothing to hide. But for many watching the case unfold, a troubling sense began to grow. What if this wasn't just a lost child, but something far more deliberate? In early March 2024, nearly 3 weeks after Joshlin's disappearance, a major break came. Police received a confidential tip from someone close to the family. The informant claimed Kelly had arranged a secret meeting with a local sangoma, a traditional healer known to operate outside the law. Investigators acted quickly, questioning the sangoma and following financial records. What they found was chilling: a cash transfer of 20,000 rand, around $1,100 had been made shortly before Joshlin vanished. This discovery shifted everything. Kelly was no longer treated as a grieving mother, but as a suspect. Authorities brought her in for further questioning, and under pressure, her story began to unravel. With this new lead, police started searching for ritualistic motives, something rarely discussed in public, but known to occur in underground practices involving so-called muti rituals. For the first time, the case had a name, a direction, and a horrifying implication that shocked the entire country. As investigators pieced together the timeline, a clearer and more disturbing picture emerged. The sangoma admitted, without revealing names, that he had been approached by someone offering a child for a ritual involving pure body parts, specifically skin and eyes, believed by some to bring wealth or power. Matching dates and messages on Kelly's phone confirmed the unthinkable: she had initiated the contact. Forensic analysis of Kelly's devices revealed voice notes and texts discussing a transaction. She had referred to Joshlin as the girl in cold, detached terms. What had started as a missing child case now pointed to premeditated harm driven by desperation or belief. Kelly's arrest was swift and public. Crowds gathered outside the police station demanding justice. For the officers on the case, the emotion was disbelief. How could a mother do this? And for the nation watching, the shock ran deep. If this could happen in a quiet town like Saldanha Bay, where else was this darkness hiding? In May 2025, after months of investigation, testimony, and forensic analysis, Raquel Smith stood trial in a packed courtroom in Cape Town. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, digital conversations, and witness accounts all pointed to one conclusion: she had sold her daughter to a sangoma for ritual purposes. The motive, prosecutors argued, was a mix of financial desperation and belief in spiritual gain. Kelly showed little emotion as the verdict was read: life imprisonment without parole. But for many, the sentencing did not bring peace. Joshlin's body had never been found. Despite Kelly's conviction, she refused to say where her daughter was or what truly happened in those final hours. Families across the country watched the news, holding their children closer, wondering how such a betrayal could take root in a parent's heart. And with no closure for Joshlin, a haunting question remains: is justice truly served if the truth is never fully told? As weeks turned into months after the trial, the pain in Saldanha Bay lingered like a heavy fog. Joshlin's disappearance had left a permanent scar on the community. Candlelight vigils continued, but the unanswered questions grew louder. Where was Joshlin? Could she still be alive? Some neighbors held out hope, clinging to rumors and unverified sightings, while others mourned quietly, believing the worst. For Kelly's extended family, the betrayal cut deep. Many had defended her at first, refusing to believe she was capable of such a thing. Now, they carried a mix of grief and shame. The community, once tight-knit, was now fractured by suspicion and sorrow. Yet, amidst the heartbreak, something began to shift. Local leaders and parents launched awareness campaigns, pushing for stronger protections for children and oversight of underground ritual practices. It wasn't justice, not yet, but it was a start. And sometimes, in the darkest places, that's all people need to keep going. By late 2025, with Kelly behind bars and the case closed, the search for Joshlin had transformed into something deeper, a mission to protect other children from similar fates. Though her body was never found, her name became a symbol across South Africa, especially in vulnerable communities where poverty and belief systems often intersect in dangerous ways. Local police departments began working more closely with child welfare agencies, and educational campaigns were launched in schools to teach children how to speak up when they feel unsafe. Families who once felt powerless began finding their voices. For those closest to Joshlin, there was no forgetting. But there was healing. Her grandmother became a quiet activist, visiting nearby towns and speaking at events about vigilance, trust, and the need to protect every child no matter the circumstances. The loss could never be undone, but the silence surrounding such tragedies had finally been broken. And that in itself was a form of justice. Months after the trial, life in Saldanha Bay slowly returned to routine, but nothing was quite the same. Parents walked their children to school with a tighter grip. Neighbors, once trusting, now watched more closely. Kelly Smith's name was no longer spoken aloud, only Joshlin's memory remained, painted on murals, printed on t-shirts, whispered in quiet prayers. Some say the town grew stronger through the tragedy, more united. Others feel a lingering fear, knowing that darkness can live behind even the most familiar doors. For those who knew Kelly, the hardest truth was realizing how easily desperation, isolation, and misguided beliefs can turn love into something unrecognizable. And so, the question remains, not just in Saldanha Bay, but everywhere. How well do we really know the people we trust most? Let us know what you think in the comments.